My next guest is North with a dubious honour. Glenn Beck told him he could be assassinated by Muslim extremists for one of his previous books. He's Brad Thor, and his latest book is Full Black. Another tub-thumping thriller, Brad. Big fan of your stuff. I mean, they're always great reads. What is particularly apposite, I guess, about having you as a guest today is that it comes on the back of, I kind of think, the unthinkable terror attack in Norway. Something that nobody, I guess, could ever have imagined. A double-pronged attack by a lone guy, it seems, maybe with help. When you heard about what had happened, as somebody that concocts these outrageous plot lines yourself, were you surprised by what you heard?
I wasn't surprised by what I heard. I was actually surprised by who the perpetrator was in the end. I think I, like many people who pay attention to terrorism, thought that this had all the fingerprints of an Al-Qaeda-style attack. You know, one of the terrible things we see now is the two-pronged attack or multi-pronged attack, whether it's the Bali bombings or what happened in Mumbai. So the idea of a bomb going off one place and that taking all the resources of police and first responders, and then that horrible, horrible massacre of those children on that island. So that's what immediately had gone through my head when I heard that. And I'm sorry to say that it didn't surprise me. It surprised me that, yes, it was Norway, but the attack itself, it's unfortunately the kind of world we live in where this stuff is happening.
Were you critical at all of the time it took the authorities there to get to that island? Because
absolutely. An hour and a half, way too long.
I mean, I thought it was pretty extraordinary, given that Norway has been a target for Al-Qaeda because of its presence in Afghanistan with troops. They'd been warned before about a possible Al-Qaeda attack, and they ought to have been thinking the unthinkable. I mean, I think since 9/11, it's been incumbent on every country, whether it's America or a European country or whatever, to have people who just sit around all day conjuring up what is this. What struck me, you know, I floated this notion of this being a pretty unacceptable delay on Twitter and was amazed by the reaction that came back of people saying, how dare you criticize the security forces. But actually, when you study the facts, the Norway Prime Minister was due there on the island, I think, within 12 hours. You would have imagined there would have been hyper-reactive security around, wouldn't you?
Well, you would think so. And I mean, this is part of a psychology that's referred to as normalcy bias, where people don't think something like this, because it's never happened, it never will happen. And it's not until a black swan event, if you will, which is what this is for Norway, happens that people look back and say, we should have seen this coming. We should have been more prepared. And just like we did with 9/11. And unfortunately, I think this is going to change things in Norway. I hope not. I hope that the Norwegian people don't allow this to change their culture. But the equivalent, I heard someone speaking saying, you know, with these people and the numbers being kind of revised down a little bit, it's still horrible. Even one death is horrible. But this is equivalent to thousands and thousands of American citizens when you kind of look at it proportionally. So this is going to be the 9/11, the 7/7, if you will, for Norway.
Tell me about the book. Full Black. What is the plot here?
Well, my books, I think one of the hallmarks of my thrillers is that they're based in reality. I try to put them there as much as possible. And for this book, I went to people I knew in the special operations community, in the intelligence community, and I said, what keeps you up at night? And one of my folks came back to me and said, have you heard about this blueprint called Unrestricted Warfare? I said, what is it? Is it a book somebody wrote? They said, no, it's actually a white paper written by a foreign military that realized they could never take America on the conventional battlefield. And they had a very sophisticated plan for how to collapse America from within. And it was written in the late 1990s. And as I started studying this, I saw a lot of the things in that blueprint were actually taking place in America right now. And I said, you know what? This is unfolding on our doorstep today. I want to base my new thriller on that. And that's what I did.
Where do you come up with this stuff? I mean, what makes you, Brad Thor, an apparently normal guy, have these incredibly weird, random thoughts?
You know, Stephen King had a great line, and Stephen King said, a writer is someone who has trained their mind to misbehave. And I think that's very much the case with me. I look at something and say, what if? You know, if we talk about the glass being half empty or half full, I want to know, what does the glass look like from underneath the table? So I always have a different way of looking at things. One of my thrillers, I had something banging around in my head. I said, what if the Cold War didn't really end? What if the Soviets rolled over and played dead? What might that look like once they decided they were done playing dead? And that was my third book, State of the Union. So I think it's just, I don't know. I think there's something that either is plugged in differently or not plugged in with thriller authors, and that's definitely my case.
We're going to have a little break. When we come back, I'm going to pick up on that precise point, which is the day the White House called and wanted you to join their Think the Unthinkable brigade.
Perfect.